Hello and welcome everyone.
My name is Roland and I recorded this video as a preparation for you to start your own reflection and ideas what we should be talking about in the workshop on 24th of November. So the first question we are going to talk about is what actually is capacity and how can we build it? So according to the United Nations in context of higher education, capacity is defined as developing and strengthening the abilities that enable individuals and the university to survive, adapt and thrive in an increasingly dynamic environment. So in plain English, it is asking the question, what are we actually doing as a university? How are we doing it? How can we do it better? What kind of university do we want to be? What kind of skills and abilities do we need? How do we acquire them? How do we strengthen and retain them? And what are the skills that we need tomorrow, next year, in 10 years in order to maintain the university we are, the university we want to be? Now, going forward from that and looking at the implications for not only the universities, but their staff, their faculty, and of course for the students as such, we can describe this as building resilience in individuals that rely on their skills, their knowledge, and the experience to overcome the challenges in their lives. And through overcoming those personal challenges, they move their organizations forward to a robust and more sustainable, successful development. Now, in brief, for students, that would mean we are basing what they should have as learning outcomes on a certain framework of skills that they should acquire to be successful in the kind of jobs they are going to in the 21st century. For us as faculty, this means we can't stand still. We can't do this semester what we did last semester or the year before. We need to continuously develop ourselves so that we can keep up with the developments in the world. So as an institution, that means we need to hire these kind of faculty and staff that are looking at the whole process of knowledge acquisition to be based on learning outcomes that are, again, then based in skills framework, for example, the Skills 2025 framework. And we need to be able to recruit such faculty. We need to be able to enable this kind of faculty, this kind of spirit in our faculty and as well staff, of course, so that we can maximize student engagement and student success post-education. Now, unfortunately, this has led in many universities to a very unreflected approach of we need more of something. Whether that is more staff, more faculty, more money. What we are doing, we are simply increasing the number of processes. We are never questioning the process itself. And luckily or not, whatever you think about the pandemic, I think that this pandemic has not created the problems that we are seeing now in education. It has simply put them to the foreground. It has highlighted the failure of educational sector over the last 20 years. There is, very, very simply put, there is zero digital education concept across the entire world. And the inability of organizations that I have been working for, that I have encountered throughout these years since the pandemic started in late 2019, early 2020, the inability of those organizations to say, okay, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is what immediately fixes the problem, and then we can work to make this sustainable, to make this more resilient. It is mind-boggling. As a faculty, you can't go into a classroom and tell students about change, agility, be flexible, and at the same time, when we turn around and are faced with these issues that we are facing right now because of the pandemic, and say, back to the classroom, because that is your comfort zone. What the amount of research I have seen trying to create the understanding that the classroom is the only thing that can teach students, or the only way how we can teach students, then I'm sorry, I have to say, then you are not a good educator. If you are depending on a certain setup, then you really need to question yourself, well, why do you need exactly this setup? Why do you need exactly this setup that we had hundreds of years ago? Quite literally, when you look up pictures of classrooms over 100 years ago, they look the same. They look essentially the same. A bunch of people being told to be in a certain place at a certain time, listening to the same stuff we have been telling them last year, the year before, and so on and so on. And students are not stupid. Students nowadays have access to the internet, and they see this is not the end of all this stuff. And when they realize there is a massive discrepancy between what is possible and what we are offering them, they begin to question us. They begin to question us, and it's absolutely right that they question us. We should be questioning ourselves. So really, we need to take a massive step back and look at the whole educational process. What is this actually about? What are we trying to do? Are we really the educators we could be for the younger generation? And I'm afraid, looking at the whole story of the pandemic, it says, no, we have failed. We have failed the younger generation. We have failed ourselves. However, when we look at, or when I look at what organizations that contact me are asking me, there always has been a number of people that feels the same, whether they use the same words as I just did, or if they just have this general feeling, we could do this better, or there is a solution to that problem we haven't thought of. It tells me there is still a large number of educators out there that really want to do their job, that are passionate about our kids' future. And to me, this is what should govern our understanding and our whole approach to education. Now, let's talk about what do very successful, very large universities do better, or do they actually do better than we do? And let's look at their capacity. And cutting a long story short, I have worked with some of the largest and most well-known universities in the world, and they are no better than the smallest, most ill-equipped university in the world. It is literally about the mindset of the people that you employ, whether you are going through these tough times very smoothly or with a lot of issues. And when I look at what kind of universities are contacting me, are reading my thoughts on how to get through this, how to implement a curriculum, how to enable your faculty to be able to conduct a halfway normal experience for students in these challenging times. It is the who is who about the universities in the world, and the only difference between universities that are higher in the rankings, universities that are more affluent, more well known, from universities that are less affluent, that have less resources, is the kind of attitude towards towards people like me, towards the whole process of education. And one of the experiences I have is that one of the universities that I have been in contact with several times since late 2019, even before the pandemic started, they keep advertising the same position. And I have sent them 2 applications. They didn't bother to reply the first time. The second time they sent me a rejection. And sure as not, a month later they advertised the same position again. And when we do some soul searching, the factual requirements for the position are exactly what I did before. And looking at my factual performance in that job is that I have been replaced by 3 faculty, and that covers my teaching load. It doesn't cover any other role or administrative duty that I had. In fact, there's a 4th person handling part of the administrative duty. And a university is not able or unwilling to see this kind of issue or this kind of performance. They see, I don't know what they see, but what they definitely see is we still don't have anyone. There is somebody out there called Roland that could do this very easily, but we are not going to hire him. What does that say about that university and their attitude towards students? Forget about the attitude towards me. Forget about attitude towards education. What is the attitude for what is your concern for your students when you are doing these kind of things? You are rejecting capacity that has proven to work. And let's not put this. Let's not make this a me thing. It is an experience that a lot of people I've been talking to have. And we need to ask the question, well, if you keep advertising this position, are you genuinely looking, or do you just don't care anymore? Now, with a bit more reflection and going back to what I said earlier, this is exactly the attitude of we need more of X. And whether that X is people, facilities, or money, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how much resources, how much time, money, capacity you throw at a problem. If you deal with an issue in the fashion that I just described, you are not going to solve the problem. You are just going to make the problem more expensive. That is an inevitable fact. So, again, cutting a long story short, throwing money at the problem does not work. Perhaps it does not work because we did not understand the problem in the first place. Now, funny enough, universities want to educate people towards understanding and solving problems. At the same time, they are not recognizing the problem in A, their business model, and B, in their attitude towards their core business model and what they are actually offering. How do we deal with that? And we need to deal with that by literally taking more than just one step back and utilize what we know, what we hopefully know, and we will recognize it's actually quite easy to solve this problem. The advantage of a smaller university, a university with a leaner, smaller, more pragmatic bureaucracy attached to it, is certainly that they can make decisions much, much faster. Implementing them is a different story. And here is where resources, money, capacity are important at the implementation stage. But implementation needs to be decisive. It cannot be bogged down by, this is not what we do here. It cannot be bogged down by concerns of whoever. The first order of the day really has to be, this is the problem, how do we solve it? And we need to approach this very, very factual and pragmatic. And that was also the time when I realized, well, this is no different from what you're doing as an organization when you are performing PESTEL and SWOT analysis. And the people that are trying to teach individuals and organizations to perform these kind of analysis in order to create a sustainable and long-term strategy are failing to take their own advice. How ironic is that? It also tells me that the problem of universities is not that they don't know this. They absolutely do. And it is not even difficult to perform this analysis and to come to conclusions based on this analysis with the individual situation of the university or even ourselves as an individual. It is difficult to implement this kind of thing, to reach the conclusion, yes, this is actually the way forward. It is that simple. And once you come to that conclusion, the major issue then is you have to be brutally honest. You have to do and say things that you probably have not done and said before. When I consult with universities about these kind of things, how to do X in a time of Y, I get the sense of they perfectly well know the answer. But it is hidden in so much, this is how we do things, this is what I want, that they can't see the tree for want of a forest. Or there is, in other words, there is information overload. They have too much information available and they are looking at the solution or at the process of creating a solution in a way that is not helping them. But enough of the theoretical talk. Let's go down to business and talk practice. When we look at the capacity at our university, the first thing that is coming to mind again is people, resources, money, facilities. We are never looking at a very, very simple point to start, to say, this is the kind of university we want to be. This is what we need for that. Make in terms of project management, what we are doing is we are setting up a requirements document, and we are breaking these requirements down to, for that we have to do X. These are the parts that we need in order to achieve the bigger picture. And once we have that, we are halfway there. Because when we really look at our resource situation, at the capacity we already have, we will be surprised at how much we don't know what we already have. And employing a lot more pragmatism than we used to, coming out of the classroom literally and looking around what is actually there. What do we have? What is out there? What do other people do? We are finding bits and bobs everywhere that we then can say, okay, this is useful. I can try to adapt this to my situation, implement it, and see how it goes. We can see, okay, this person has the experience that this kind of thing doesn't work, but it might work in my case because. And in essence, what I'm trying to say is we need to reflect on the basis of fact and on the basis of understanding our environment much better than we do. And my experience is that as soon as people start reflecting on what skills do I have, what can I do, they are not very far away from where they want to be. And with a clear understanding of where they should be going, where they want to be going, they can then identify, is there a gap? And if so, how can I close this gap? What is available to me in order to achieve those 10, 15 or whatever percent more? Or how can I be that person that can perform like I want to perform for the younger generation in the university? And a big chunk of that is personal development. And the second immediate thought I have is, do you actually know what your IT facilities, your learning management system can do? Is there something you could use in order to make the experience and the understanding for students better? When you are brutally honest about the performance of what is available, what should be available, what should we be doing, you will find that a lot of these things are very easy and they are very close. So there is in the real world, there is no difference between large and small universities, between big fundings and small fundings. The large universities can afford to just throw money at the problem and pray that it goes away. It won't go away. But it will be easier to deal with if you have much more capacity. Their problem is they can't just call 3 or 4 smart people into a room and say, this is the problem, let's solve this, and come up with a solution within a day. They are going through so many committees, approval stages, and then this side of the decision needs to fight with university administration and leadership in order to get what they need. So we need to use our strength as a smaller and less well-funded university. We need to look at what are actually our strengths and apply them to this kind of decision making. And having a first-hand experience of our learning management system now, I see immediately a couple of things. Okay, this is better than what I know. This is not as good as what I know, and we could fix this by doing this. So this will be a constant evolving between the real world and our response to it. And going back to what I said previously, we need to start walking the talk. We cannot just tell students, oh, be agile, change management, dynamic environment. We need to be walking examples of what we teach. And that will also solve the problem of students questioning our intentions. It will solve the problem of students seeking their solutions somewhere else. Because if we do this ourselves, if we walk the talk, if we show them this is what we do, we have the same problem as you do, we have it on a different level, but we use the solution that we tell you will work, and it works for us, it will work for you. Then students will not only come back to the classroom, they will come and interact with us in whatever medium we use. Don't be fixed on the medium. Be fixed on what education is about. Giving young people our experience, sharing knowledge with them, enabling them to solve the problems of tomorrow. Now, after all this talk and going through a bit of a reflection, the final and most important question we then need to ask is, how do we maximize the utility in this situation? And I am not only talking about utility for students, I'm talking about utility for all of us, for students, the university, ourselves. And it is really a question of the mindset, I have discovered. And in the future, we will not be getting away with just doing the same thing every semester, every year. We need to start with looking at how does learning actually work. We need to use that understanding, that knowledge, in order to help students go on their own journey and discover knowledge, discover and use knowledge, creating experience, so they are able to respond to the challenges in their lives, whether it is personal or, of course, at the organizational level in their professional careers. Maximizing utility is what this is really about. We need to not only ask ourselves, what kind of resources do we need? What kind of resources do we have? We need to understand these resources to limits, how far we can stretch them. We need to ask the question, can this resource do more for us than what it is doing right now, without exceeding the limits of this actual resource? For example, let's imagine we have a faculty that is very big and very successful, utilizing technology and online tools for a COVID-resistant delivery. We cannot put this faculty into every single classroom. We cannot let this faculty teach things that is completely out of their area of expertise. What we need to do is to utilize the knowledge and experience this faculty has at a different level. We need to ask this faculty, well, how would you respond to this situation? How would you utilize this? Could you help me utilizing this resource, or find another resource that I can employ in this situation? It is all about becoming explorers again. Not accepting that we are finished with our life achievement, we are just fading out to our retirement. We need to become explorers again and use the curiosity of a child to develop ourselves and our resources to become better and better every day. Now that may include inviting external resources, for example, increasing collaboration with other faculty in other universities, with publishers, with content creators worldwide that are helping us creating a portfolio of resources that we can employ in order to give students more resources to choose from. So they mix and match until they achieve the understanding that we want them to achieve.